Hey fellow coaches, I'm Cody Sharp and I'm a parent first and a coach second. And I have been a softball coach, a baseball coach, a rec coach, all-star coach, travel coach. And the thing I love about coaching is working with the kids. The thing I hate the most about coaching is dealing with the lineups. And I'm here to tell you that there's a better solution than this Excel mess that I'm trying to do day in and day out, getting all these lineups set up, making sure that everyone plays in the infield. No kid is sitting twice before someone sits once. And all these other kinds of rules we try to make for ourselves. And I'm here to tell you there's a better way. Gametime lineups. This software allows for you to jump in right away. You never have to deal with Excel again unless you really want to. Let's go ahead and just click New Team and get started. I prefer to dive right in with some dummy data that we've set up. That way we can just make edits as needed, but you can also start by building your team fresh. Let's go ahead and click Absolutely. Let's dive in. And it comes up with our dummy data here ready for us to go. And in fact, everything is already set up. We've got our names, we've got our defensive ratings that we've set up, our hitting abilities we've set up, and our pitcher and catchers are already ranked as well. That means we can just click It's Game Time, guys, and away we go. Check out this. We've got all of our players being appropriately given fielding positions, batting positions, all based around the skills that have been put into place. Over here you have a field to show how many times they're on the infield, how many times they're on the outfield, and then how many times they are considered extra hitters or people that are going to hit but not necessarily play that inning. In game time lineups, it's really important for us to try to have as many fair innings as possible. We're always trying to make it so kids are not sitting on the bench multiple times before someone else sits on the bench for the first time. And honestly, that's the best thing for our sport. I'm a lover of baseball and softball, and I want to see it continue. And the more times we get kids sitting on the bench over and over and over again without actually being able to get out there and improve their skill set during a game, the less likely we are going to have those kids for the subsequent season. So let's get them out there and let's try to get as many different kids out there as possible. And that's what the system is set up to do. Now, I can talk to you about this all day long, but I just want to kind of go through some other functionality. Of course, these are not your players, right? These are just the dummy data. So you could just go in here and change it out. I'm Cody, so we could just put Cody in here. And my defensive abilities are certainly not a 9. Maybe they're more around a 6. And batting abilities, I don't know, guys. I feel more like a 7 guy. So now with this improved, updated information, I can just click It's Game Time again. Cody's going to get moved down. And I'm also going to be assigned positions that may be a little bit more appropriate compared to some of the other position players on the team. What it tries to do is to put people that are in, that are defensively better or better hitters in those positions that are going to be the best fit for their skill set. Now, you can always override that, and the nice thing about that is if you've ever done this in Excel, try to pick out which positions. Let's say we want Cody has to be our first baseman in the first inning. Well, you notice right away it's going to highlight that and say, you know what, there's a need now to change somebody else into a different position. And the only positions it's going to make available to you are going to be the ones that are available. That way you don't go scumming around trying to figure out which one do I have left. Do I have a left fielder position left or a center fielder position left or whatever? Now we've got our left fielder here with Benton. Now Benton's going to be a great left fielder out there. There's no doubt about it. But that also means that now he's in the outfield 3 times. And that all is going to be dynamically calculated for you. You know, as a coach, you're going to have a much better feel for where your players should be. But you can tell, you know, based on the defensive abilities here that we have, the players in general, the algorithm that's being used on the back end will pick out players defensively that will go into the right field spot when they don't have as good as defensive abilities, right? They'll go into the extra hitter spot when we have 10 players, or we have 15 players, we may have 6 extra hitter spots. See, Game Time lineups allows for you guys to have up to 20 players, and all of it will be managed by the algorithm in the back end, trying to always make it fair, but also at the same time trying to make you competitive. Now, you can override that as well. If you're the type of coach that doesn't really mind too much about where your players play and just want to give people experience, maybe you want to use sandlot mode. And this is perfect for when the kiddos are using they're all batting through and they're playing different positions every inning, just click Sandlot mode and it's just going to play them wherever. It's not going to worry about their skill sets. This is the anti-competitive mode, if you will. It's perfect for 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds, that maybe 7-year-olds that are on the border of like just learning the game, but also learning how not to just dig in the dirt most of the time. So let's go back to rec mode, which is the majority of the time people are going to be using that use Gametime lineups. And notice again that I want to show how flexible and easy it is to modify this. Now, this is made for a 5-inning game. I don't know about how you all coach, but I know when I typically have set up my lineups for years, I'm always doing about 5 innings, right? We don't always get through 5 innings, but I'm hopeful. But let's say that we want to go the full 9. Gametime lineups has the ability to do as many as you'd like to. So it's going to give you a bunch of warnings here, because let's say that you spent some time on this, you went through, you've made modifications throughout, and it's like, hey, if you do this, you're going to lose all of these spots that you've put out. So it's better to set this up ahead of time, right? It's better to set up how many innings you want to go before you start setting up all your individual lineups. But let's go the full 9. And let's go ahead and say, I don't know about your kiddos, but only having 2 catchers for 9 innings is going to be pretty rough. You can do it in Gametime lineups. You're required to have 2 catchers. And in baseball, I usually have folks do 3 pitchers. And the reason is most kids aren't going to pitch more than 3 innings in the Little League era, mostly due to pitch counts or league rules anyway. Let's go ahead and set up a 3rd catcher and then just click it's Gametime. We already have 3 pitchers here. And it's going to set that lineup up. Guys, check it out. Not a single player is an extra hitter more than once. And your player at the top, the one that's not an extra hitter once, you've guessed it, your best defensive player. Now, this type of technology here doesn't always play nice like that. And the reason is that, let's say Sonny is a pitcher. Well, pitchers that are also your best defensive hitter, and maybe he's also your catcher, that's going to be a little bit more difficult for you to always have the algorithm say, this player does not sit on the bench ever before this player does. So if you ever need to manually override that, again, you have the ability at any point. Notice that the pitchers that are taken out will never come back in. Now, that isn't the case in softball pitching mode. So if you need to use softball pitching mode, usually the first pitcher can come back in, depends on the league rules, but that's an option up here as well. The other thing about softball pitching mode is typically in softball, you won't have pitch counts. So even if you only set up 2 pitchers, you're going to be set and not going to be a problem at all. Up here, it tells you basically the long and short of what these defensive and batting and rankings are. We prefer ranking pitchers, and the reason I use ranking instead of doing like a rating system for pitchers is because you may not have pitchers available at a certain game, right? And I don't want you to have to keep going back and changing out rankings or numbers like you would. Defensive and batting numbers, you're probably not going to have to change too much, and if you do, it's as easy as just hitting an 8 here. So on the pitcher side, you can rank up to 5 pitchers that can be used in the game. Catcher side, it's the same way. The defensive and the batting are 1 to 10. Also, you do have the ability to drag and drop. Some people don't notice this, but if you go to Benton to Chris, for example, Benton's going to be moved down, Chris is going to be moved up. That's one option. Some people prefer just using arrows. So if you want Benton to just go up, without having to use the drag and drop, you can just use the arrows left and right over here. We have the ability to delete people very quickly. So if I want Benton to no longer be part of the lineup, let's say I've set the lineup up and his parents reach out and say he's not going to be able to make the game, we can just simply delete him. And we have 9 folks. We're just going to Gametime it again. Now we have our new lineup set up using all of the other functionality that we set up. Let's say that we need to add some new people in. Someone said they were going to be out on vacation, but they actually said, no, I'm actually going to be there now. That kind of thing can be a little frustrating sometimes, especially when you've spent a long time updating the lineup. And so here we have Jackson added in. I'm going to Gametime it, and now it's going to modify it and put him into different positions and places that are a good fit for his skill set. The same thing can be done with adding lots of players. So if I want to, like I said, we can go all the way up to 20. The innings, obviously, we have those set for 8 or 9 right now. If I want to, I can just clear everything out. I can just say, I don't want any of these players. I don't want any of these innings. And I can just click this button. It's going to give us a notice that, hey, if you do this, it's going to remove everything. This cannot be undone. So we try to put in little notices so those types of mistakes don't happen. You'll notice that we also have the ability to save the lineup. This is awesome because if you have multiple teams or if you're playing across multiple sports or leagues, now you just pull one up at the beginning. You can also just load the lineup from here and go from one team to another one, and it's going to remember all of that. So if I go back to a previous team that I had created, let's say here for the Hoosiers, I can just load up that team, and you can see at that point I hadn't even selected the innings. Sometimes what I like to do is I like to set my default team, the one that includes all of my players, and in that way I can just delete the players that aren't at that game, right? So you'll have the 13-member team or the 12-member team, and in that day Benton's not there, and so you have that kind of as the starting off point, and then you set your lineup based on all the other stuff that you'd already set up. So those types of things are very easy to do as well. One of the things that people had asked for early on is, let's say that you spend some time and you really want to go through and kind of fine tune things. You're still a coach. You want to get the most out of your team and be as competitive as possible. And let's say that you fine tuned it and you've locked it down. So up until inning 4, you're really good. But after inning 4, you really don't know. You don't want anything else to change. So what we can do is we can actually lock these innings down here. And then we can game time just those innings. So the ones that haven't been locked. And in that way, you can still get that dynamic aspect of things without having to worry so much about having not locked those, not having a lot of changes occur all at once. We can also lock the batting order. This is really useful if you want somebody. By default, it's going to sort people into certain batting orders based on their skill set that you've given them. And that's one way of doing it. But let's say in this case that Cooper is really, really fast. And even though he's not my best hitter, I want him at the top of the order. So I'm going to put Coop at the top of the order here. And then I'm going to lock this batting order. So now, even if I make changes later on with my game time, even if I make modifications now and say it's game time, it's not going to take Coop out of the order here and put him further down, even though it's trying to find the best possible batters for the scenario. So a lot of those types of things have all been thought about, so you don't have to think about them yourself. Then you have to worry about. Let's go ahead and load up one of these old lineups here. So we can start with, my Hoosiers again. And this time, we've got my 9 innings. I'm going to go back and do that again for 4. Or maybe let's go to 5. Let's go to 5. We're going to unlock the batting order, which was something that was saved from the previous save. We're going to game time it. And then what we're going to do from here is I'm ready to go. I want to get my rosters ready and I want to print them out. I like a printed roster. And I don't know about you guys. I mean, digital is great. You can take a screenshot and send it over to people, whatever. But the truth of the matter is, when you got boys and girls inside of the dugout, they're always asking the same thing. Where's my, what spot am I in? What spot am I in? What spot am I in? And it drives you nuts. So the best possible thing is to print it out and do it old school. So up here in the top left-hand corner, we've got a print share lineup button. So when you do that, it's just going to pop up in your browser of choice. It's going to have the lineup for your team at the top. Now this is going to be the one that includes all of the places the players are set to play and those types of things. And then you can also add some notes down here. This is really useful, especially if you're not going to be able to run every aspect of the team. Maybe you have an assistant coach that's going to be looking at this or whatever. So you can make a couple of other notes too. And these are just going to print off, right? So these are not something that you have to worry about having long term. And that's it. So super easy. This is the list that you just print this whole thing out on your printer and then you give this over to your competitor, right? If they're using Game Changer or whatever, then they can actually just put this stuff into Game Changer, right? Otherwise, yeah, just click print and you can put it in this format. It's ready to go. Check it out. It's already formatted correctly. On the bottom, it's formatted correctly. Boom, print and done. So everything about Game Time lineups, really trying to make it as simple as possible for you to get back to coaching and stop worrying about the administrative stuff.